This year's post-budget election poses another challenge for Treasurer Frydenberg. He's held his Melbourne seat of Kooyong for more than a decade, but in 2022, he's going up against one of the many cashed-up pro-climate independent candidates, taking on moderate Liberals in what are traditionally blue ribbon seats.
Good morning. Morning, sir.
Josh Frydenberg spends the weeks leading up to the budget here in Canberra, locked away in his parliamentary office and at Treasury for many hours at a time, often only getting out for a brief bit of exercise.
These processes, the budget preparation is a pretty intense period.
And for him, it comes at a personal cost. This time last year, we met the Treasurer's family at home in Melbourne.
Oh, no, you're going really well. Okay. Good girl, monkey girl.
He says his wife Amy and kids Blake and Gemma are the lens through which he looks at not just life, but his job too.
Do you mean Mr. Josh Frydenberg?
Otherwise known as Daddy. Hello, guys.
How are the family, the kids?
Great. I mean, everyone's now back at school, which is fantastic. It's been particularly hard for Victorians, but it's also been hard being away from home so much, KG. But I'm looking forward to seeing them up here in Canberra next week.
So they'll be here for
the budget. Although my son, who's 5, says it's the most boring thing he's ever attended, so I'm sure this year will be no different.
Is the budget exciting or boring?
Boring. The budget's next Tuesday.
Just before seeing Daddy in Canberra?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good answer. And I can't wait to see you guys.
Josh Frydenberg's high-profile position in the Morrison government and time spent away from home has his political opponents questioning his commitment to Kooyong.
The fact that Mr Frydenberg spends a lot of time out of Kooyong is understandable given that he's the federal treasurer, but what is not understandable is the extent to which he abandoned us as a local member over the last 3 years. And there's a lot of anger and resentment at the way that he turned on the electorate of Kooyong and the state of Victoria during the COVID pandemic.
The Deputy Liberal leader holds his seat in Melbourne's eastern suburbs by a margin of just 6.4%. Last election, his major challenger was the Greens candidate. Now he's facing a new fight against independent candidate Monique Ryan, a medical specialist from the Royal Women and Children's Hospital.
I will represent you because I share your values and I don't answer to a party.
She's one of a growing cohort of independents challenging Liberals this election, campaigning on climate action and a federal anti-corruption commission, part of the Voices Of movement, which is in part being bankrolled by Climate 200, a fundraising group set up by activist Simon Holmes-A-Court.
Well, the donors that we've had it's been extraordinary. We've had a huge amount of support both from inside the electorate but also outside the electorate, and yes, it's people from all ages and stages and people who've donated relatively small amounts, and then some incredibly generous people who've been able to contribute much greater amounts to the campaign. This is it's a David versus Goliath battle.
Already her campaign has received more than $950,000 in donations, but insists not all of that has come from Holmes-A-Court.
Way less than half of our funding to date has been from Climate 200, and Climate 200 is just a single donor.
The Teal independents are providing a challenge, aren't they, to you and your colleagues in Wentworth in Sydney and North Sydney. Are you confident you can push back against the Teal independent in your seat of Kooyong?
Well, I don't take anything for granted, and I've been very fortunate to be elected by my community 4 times, and I'm very grateful for that. I continue to work hard for my local community, but we're up against these fake independents. More often than not, they're former Labor Party members. They're running on a Labor Party platform, and they're running against Liberals.
But Monique Ryan has a respected pedigree in a medical fraternity. Is that a tough one to defeat, that individual?
I faced an independent who fancied themselves at the last election, and the people of Kooyong thought differently. and voted differently. But of course, we don't take anything for granted, continue to work hard for my community. But these independents are certainly acting like a political party. The strings are being pulled elsewhere. And in the case of my opponent, who calls themselves an independent, they're a former member of the Labor Party, something they sought to cover up.
I haven't at any point hidden the fact that I was a member of the Labor Party briefly from 2007. Never went to a meeting, never had any engagement with the party, gave up that membership in 2010 when the Kevin Rudd government failed to take action on climate change. To call me a fake independent is just cheapening what the people of Kooyong feel and want, which is someone who actually represents what they want.
That, she says, is action on climate change.
It's the single most important issue to the voters of Kooyong.
Do you have to tap into those issues, though, that they're trying to seize on, to say to parents in Kooyong, others that might be swayed, that you are listening on those issues?
Well, we're listening on a whole range of issues, and we're acting. And take the issue of climate change. We're committed to net zero by 2050. We've put in place significant policies to help ensure that smooth transition. We're driving electricity prices down. We're ensuring the reliability of the grid, and we're also seeing a smaller carbon footprint in a way that many other countries are not.
So you think he's been a good member for this community?
Definitely. Josh Frydenberg's an intelligent fellow. He's doing his best he can.
Been a good member for this area?
I do emphatically, yes.
And will you be voting for him?
I will be voting for him.
Some of those in the health space in the Treasurer's electorate are also backing him.
From a local perspective, Josh has always been at the end of the phone call for me, whether it's policy questions, questions on superannuation and access for cancer patients, or just about local issues. We've had such a wonderful relationship with Josh.
The election outcome in Kooyong could very well influence who becomes the next Liberal leader. If the coalition loses government at the May election, any contest for the Liberal leadership is expected to come down to Josh Frydenberg and Defence Minister Peter Dutton, who came close in the 2018 ballot, ultimately won by Scott Morrison. If the coalition doesn't win the election, will you step up as leader?
I'm focused on one thing, Kieran, delivering a budget that supports families, that supports small businesses, that sees further investments in our regions, that of course enhances our national security and meets some of those new threats that we face.
The view is, though, that if you don't win, that it'll be you and Peter Dutton. Are you here for the long haul? Are you in Parliament for the long haul?
I certainly am in Parliament for the long haul, and I'm focused on the budget at hand, winning the election. That's what I'm doing.
And is your view that if you get this job right, that other things fall into place later on?
We always try to do every job that you're given to the best of your ability.
The Treasurer has made no secret of his political ambitions, and they come as no shock to his friends and colleagues either.
If we have more people like that in every political party, Australia would be governed more effectively, because, as you know, it is a team game. Yes, ScoMo's lost a bit of paint, but you know, you and I would if the media were out. Some in the media were out to get us every day.
Former Liberal Minister Amanda Vanstone still keeps in touch with the Treasurer. She says he's crucial to the coalition's election prospects and the party's future.
I took the opportunity to have a look at Roy Morgan recently. I don't do that sort of thing very often because you can become obsessed with those things. It's a bit like becoming obsessed with your phone. You've got to be careful and put it down. But I did have a look at Frydenberg's polling, and what surprised me the most was he's more popular than Dutton in Queensland. Now, I didn't expect that because Dutton's a Queenslander. Everybody expects their own home state to prefer them more. But he is, therefore, I assume, popular right across the board. And that's important because, if you're on the far left of the Labor Party and the far right of the Liberal Party, I can assure you Middle Australia is not really interested in you. Middle Australia is in the middle. That's the bell curve of voting. And there's a line down the middle, and one side's Liberal, one side's Labor, and the closer you are to the centre, the more likely you are to bring people over that line to your side. And I think Frydenberg fits that pretty well.
For now, Josh Frydenberg's challenge is a short-term one. Deliver the budget and win the election.
Is it like the end of a marathon now for you? Does it feel like that, or is your finishing line the election, or how do you see it?
Well, in politics there is no finishing line, because whether it's a budget, then an election campaign, then hopefully time after that, putting in place the policies that you campaigned on. It doesn't stop, but of course it's a great privilege to be the Treasurer, particularly at this very challenging time for Australia and the world.
Josh Frydenberg, a busy week. Thanks for making some time for a coffee.
My pleasure.
Tune in from 7:30 p.m. this Tuesday for Sky's unrivalled budget coverage, including analysis, interviews with the key players, and must-watch focus group reaction of undecided voters giving their reaction live. That's on Tuesday.